Okay, welcome everybody. We are back with the usual suspects on the regular day. And today in the B2B Growth Lab, we are having a conversation about customers. I mean, I think we have this conversation almost every week. Customer-centric business, in my opinion, is the only business to have and the only one that'll be here in the very near future. But our topic is customers over contracts, or how to win loyalty with long-term thinking. A lot of businesses focus on closing the deal and then forget everything after. And I mean it literally. I'll lean into a training I did a couple of weeks ago. But the whole key to this stuff is that relationship equals retention. And retention is the true engine of profitability. Lifetime value is where the money inside of a business is made. Everything that happens in the minutes after the transaction are the moments that matter. And that's the beginning of what should be a beautiful friendship. So today we're here to talk about how to design post-sale journeys, follow-up, continuity, touch points, all sorts of stuff that keep your clients coming back, growing and advocating for your brand, because the fact is the sale's not done at the sale. The sale actually just begins after you close that first contract. So we're going to discuss how to build a seamless success framework, how to be proactive about engagement and create cadences that actually work, putting in feedback loops, and this stuff really helps you evolve your offer and clean up the whole acquisition part of your business, by the way. But the thing that most people fail to do, in my opinion, is fail to measure the ROI of loyalty. And so with that being the case, where should we start first?
I think that we should start, because it's easy if you're on the listening side of this, particularly if you're a business owner. It's easy to think, oh, well, these guys don't get it, right? They're just saying we never focus on the sale, or we only focus on the sale and forget about our customers. But we're customer centric, right? And I think that what they're really meaning is we trust that our processes and systems have got the back end. They've got it. And so we don't have to come back in and check with these customers. And I think that that's probably the whole foundation of this thinking. It's not like corporate greed that's saying, just close the deal, close the deal, close the deal. Although sometimes that could be the case. I think that often it's just our back end has it. We don't need to focus on it. But they're doing that to their own detriment. Rob, you look like you have a thought.
Yeah, let's talk about what good looks like, right? When I got into business with Meridian Knowledge Solutions, when I was in corporate America, they're an LMS provider, smaller one. They had something they called the Tiger Team. After implementation, after we did all the configuration, every 2 weeks, a group of their customers met, talked about system development needs, and that helped them inform their strategic direction for the development of their platform. And when my employment with that employer ended, 61% of the ideas we suggested had been implemented. What did that do for our retention? Right? They listened. So we were loyal until I left and they just said, well, my cousin works for so-and-so. We need to switch it up and buy from someone else. Right? But objective honesty, engaging your customers, listening to them, right? Not severing that relationship once you get the sale, but a lot of different ways you could do it. And some of it's actually even valuable to you as a business. It's a win-win, right? You feel good.
Yes. Yeah, that's an absolute key. I'm going to bring some metrics in to back you up, Rob. I just did a training recently. The people who presented it started with, We serviced 86 companies between 10 million and 1 billion in revenue in 2025. Here are our findings. Now, I'm not going to spend the entire hour going granular about all of those findings. They published some brilliant stuff, by the way. Here are the things that enabled growth. Here's the things that were limiting growth, etc. But one of the slides, I took a screenshot of it, was basically the lead to conversion to sale, and above it, there's an arrow that says intense resource focus. And then there's the transaction point, and then their language for onboarding fulfillment, and it says still and afterthought. So if 86 companies between 10 million and 1 billion have failed to think about what happens after the transaction, I'm going to assume I'm missing information too. My company's lacking systems, processes, SOPs, all sorts of stuff for it, right? And I think so are the rest of us. Right? Everyone who knows they need to improve this, raise their hand. The whole world stands up, hopefully.
Well, they should. And I think, to underscore this point, and something that you said earlier, Jacob, you said that, this is something that everyone should be focused on is that customer centricity. It strikes me that those businesses that look at that customer relationship post-transaction as the afterthought are in a lot of danger. And here's what I mean by that. Experts predict, now obviously this is speculation, but experts predict that between now and 2031, we will lose on average 10,000 SaaS companies per year. So within 5 years, we are looking at a loss of 50,000 SaaS companies and all of the jobs that go with it. Only the businesses that are customer centric and actually understand what their customers want them to do and deliver it soup to nuts are the ones that are going to survive this purge. I was talking with a guy last night, and he was telling me about Claude Cowork. And he was saying, oh, it's great. I can sync up my LinkedIn, my Google Calendar. I can give it a clear picture of who my target audience is. And Claude will, mimicking my voice in my behalf, basically act as though it is me and book conversations with prospects in my behalf on the back end. And so I'll go to a conference and I'll say, Claude, I'm going to this conference, set up appointments for me to meet with people in my target audience. And it will do it. And he said, that's my go-to-market team. All of these jobs that we thought were protected are not protected because people are focused on process, to my earlier point, on process over the human being that the process is designed to serve. And when you do that, you run a huge risk as a company. The risk is that you'll be one of that 50,000 number because the customer will say, you don't care about me. This is just a transaction. You're not actually giving me everything that I need. So I'm going to go have Claude do it.
Yeah.
It's cheaper. It's faster. Claude doesn't sleep. Claude doesn't whine. Claude doesn't try and renegotiate the contract.
100%. And, I don't have a front and center statistic because I find it varies greatly depending on the cost of acquisition of a customer and the payback period of that customer and then the lifetime value of that customer. But I wouldn't say it's far off of Rob's baseline, which is if you lose an employee, it costs you 213%. And so, the cost of a customer, depending on when you lose them, it's definitely multiples of them. And that can happen long before you actually manage the whole LTV thing and you start getting any of that acquisition cost back.
100%. Yeah, the numbers I have heard, obviously it varies based off of industry and customer type and business model and all of that, but 7 to 19 times.
Yep.
Right.
I was going to say 12 plus or minus 5, which is where you are. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So if it costs me $1,000 to get a customer through the door that I can actually close, and I lose them, inside of that 30% attrition rate that happens in the onboarding phase, I've lost $19,000 on the top end.
And this is what doesn't make sense to me. Is I'll have conversations with business owners and they'll say, well, it's just easier for me to go and get leads and to just close the leads. Like what you are telling me is the same thing that Rob was telling people, on the back end, which is 213%.
Right.
This is literally millions of dollars. You are tripping over dollars to make dimes because you are saying, I'd rather have the ego stroke of closing a new contract than have to deal with maintaining an existing one and potentially mining it for more money, because they think that growth only comes from closed sales, new sales, new business.
Lifetime value, customer lifetime value, right? CLV. What is that? Right? Varies by industry.
Mm-hmm.
But like we do a lot of work in the home services sector, right? HVAC, plumbing, electrical. And customer lifetime value, they're going to call you out there for, a winter furnace tune-up. You're going to go vacuum and maybe change a thermocouple, right? I mean, it's not a big job, right? $100, $200. What's the customer lifetime value if you're just the HVAC person? It's like $25,000, right?
Absolutely.
Because they're going to need a furnace at some point, right? Yeah. Every house has a ticking time bomb in it, and you just want to be the guy they call when that thing goes off. Yeah. So how do you do that? Well, if you're there for any reason, establish loyalty. Make that customer a sustainable customer. Spend the $200 to make the 25,000, 30,000, 40,000, depending on how big the house is. Right? Like,
yeah,
you have the cash to do it, but put the sticker on the furnace and enroll them automatically in your loyalty program and give them a balance.
And that's without even adding the other GTMs, right? Of like, oh, and by the way, here's the ductwork scheduling, and a cleaning of the ductwork is complementary with this, and heat on demand has gotten this much cheaper, so why don't we schedule an install for this date and time? And that 25K like bumps up into the 40s.
Yes.
With a little bit of revenue architecture.
Right.
I think too that like fundamentally you have to boil this down to why are people hiring that home services company in the first place? Well, if you live in the Midwest, it's because you don't want to be cold. If you live in the Southwest, it's because you don't want to be hot. Right? And so it's like, if that's what I am focused on, then I am building the relationship so that every time they have a problem, anytime their house feels hot, they're calling me, because I have done such a thorough job and such a good job the first time of solving that problem and been so satisfactory that they will never go anywhere else. When we talk about customer centricity, that's what we're talking about. It's not just like all of these little bells and whistles. It's not the outward customer equivalent of having ping pong tables and endless soda fountains for your employees, right? What we're talking about is fundamentally, why did they hire you? Like, did you deliver that? How do I say this? Did you exceed their expectations because you were able to, one, know the problem better than they did, and then two, understand the alternatives better than they could, or the solutions, and then three, give them insights that they couldn't get anywhere else, because that's the foundation. If you can do that, then you you are very well versed in that job, in the underlying causal relationship that created a situation where they said, yes, I want you to come and fix my AC. I need you to come and do a furnace tune-up. Like, but unless you understand that, then you can't be customer centric. And
Absolutely.
so part of this is having those conversations and that long-term, like a solid enough relationship with your customer base that you can ask them those questions and not just guess at the answers, which many, like way more business owners than you would think guess at that. And they're just really, they made one really good guess and then they assume that they know everything about their customer.
I want to bring in an AI point too here, because you talked about Claude earlier, and like this is another thing. We're installing voice AI at scale, and the recoverable revenue of simply being available.
Yes.
Right? Just answering the phone. Even never mind during working hours, because AI doesn't care. It doesn't need to sleep. But we have seen an average of $50,000 of recovered costs in the first 30 to 45 days.
Wow.
By putting something in that makes sure the phones are answered 24/7, because again, most of these, blue collar stuff that we were leaning into a minute ago, nobody calls them to find out how you're doing, if you're having a good day, how's the weather in your part of town. It's always, I need help now.
Right.
Right. And these businesses are notorious for not being available. The average small business does not pick up the phone 62% of the time.
Holy cow.
Yep.
So it's terrifying. And this is something that everybody can win at yesterday. Like, this is a deployable thing.
Yes.
So it sounds like, going back to our original question, 90% of life is just showing up, to quote Woody Allen.
Yes.
Right. And then this remaining 10% is actually when you show up knowing what to do. It's like the old adage about a very wealthy man has a private jet that's not starting. The engine won't fire for whatever reason. And he gets a mechanic, and that mechanic can't figure it out. So he has another guy, and the guy comes in and he looks at the engine and he pulls out a screwdriver, Phillips head, very important. And he gets a ball peen hammer and he goes, dink, 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 closes the hatch and says, okay, yeah, you should be good to go. And the pilot fires up the engine, and this wealthy man receives an invoice for $15,000. And he's like, $15,000? I'm not paying you $15,000. You gave me 30 seconds of work. What the hell? And the guy says, oh, yeah, so that 30 seconds of work was $30. The other was for knowing what to do in that 30 seconds of work, and that's like, I got your engine started. You were willing to pay all of this money up ahead of time. And then now you're complaining because I did the job you wanted me to do, right? Like, just again, going back to that customer centricity, knowing what to do in the moment for that customer.
Yeah. And it's the economy of scale too, right? Like, yeah, I could Google it right now, but I forget what the maintenance costs are just keeping that thing on an annual basis. Right. And, it's up there. In a personal conversation I had a few years ago, this guy was bringing home around $40 million a year so that he could spend 12 on a toy like that. And he knew it. He's like, I worked this hard because I want this toy, but it's just one of those things of like, that's the trade-off. So again, like a $15,000 mechanical job isn't a big deal.
Right. It's for some a point of pride.
Absolutely.
Right. I spent $100,000 on my McLaren last week as a point of pride. Right.
Yeah, that's what it costs to maintain one.
Right.
And that's,
talk to anybody who's paid for an oil change for a Jaguar.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's part of what they're buying. They deliberately want that, right? Is, for lack of a better term, this ostentatious show of wealth. But this is all encoded on the back end.
Yeah.
And this is all like going back to what we were talking about. That's the Jaguar is not tripping over dollars to make dimes with the maintenance schedules on these things. Neither is McLaren, right? It's like understanding the emotional, social, functional jobs that are related to what your customer wants and then delivering on it consistently. And it actually impacts both sides of the sale equation, pre and post sale. Going back to the original thesis, right? The pre-sale, it tells you, hey, this is what you want solved, right? This is what you're considering to solve that problem, right? Well, let me tell you why this didn't work for me and why that didn't work for me, but this really worked for me when I had the same problem and why I ultimately chose this option. And then on the post side, it helps you with product and service development and design. It helps you with your customer retention and delivery and all of that stuff, right? And it actually helps your business run smoother and more efficiently, because when you know exactly what matters to your customer, you don't waste your time with all of these shiny objects outside of, does this solve this problem better, faster, cheaper than what we've currently got? Because if it does, then we need to dedicate R&D money to figuring that out and implementing it, because our customer is going to want this eventually. The way that I talk about it is like, this is a little macabre. I don't know. Have you guys seen The Hunger Games or read the books? So the whole premise is they get like, what is it, like 26 teens or something like that, and put them in a giant arena, and then they have to death match. And these super wealthy elite people will send in gifts and weapons and things like that to the participants. Well, businesses are the same way. We're all gladiators in this arena, and people are throwing in technology all the time. And we have to figure out, does this actually apply to the job that my customer is trying to get done, or is it a distraction? Because the businesses that can implement that top technology before anyone else are going to be the ones who set the course until the next technology is thrown into the arena. And again, that's on the post-delivery side. And that is what helps you keep customers.
Something else I think we're circling around that needs to be touched a little bit more clearly is also the managing expectations. Right? I forget what the sticker price of a McLaren is, but nobody lives under the pretense that after you buy a vehicle of any sort, that maintenance isn't coming. We all know it's true. And when you buy a vehicle of that caliber, you're going to expect parts and maintenance to have a certain level of expense, right? I don't know how many mechanics are trained on how to work on McLarens, but it's obviously fewer than Toyotas, right? And there's going to be a certain level of training that they have. There's going to be, I guess we're going to do movie references today. One of my favorite Kung Fu movies has this as well, right? And the guy is like a Robin Hood by night and a Chinese doctor by day. And he's seeing two patients at the same time. And he writes out their prescriptions and hands them over. And the one guy is, not wealthy and gets unwealthy medicine, and the other guy is wealthy and gets wealthy medicine, and he's the one who pipes up. He's like, "Why is it so expensive?" And he's like, "Because I gave you the medicine you can afford. Do you want the cheap medicine?" And he's like, No.
Oh yeah.
Right? I want stuff that fits my stature. And so our expectations are there, and it's again, there's no need to participate into the race to the bottom. But if you build stuff in, you provide a high level of value, and then there's a certain level of expectation to maintain it, your retention's actually going to be stronger.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a lot of McLarens on Craigslist, for example.
Well, the thing that's interesting about McLarens too, I actually spoke with a member of their marketing team, and one of the things that they did is exactly what we're talking about, because they're smart. So they went and they talked with their customers, because you're talking about a 7-8 figure dollar sports car here. Like, this thing is a work of art. Like, heck yeah, I will send my marketing team out to talk to you to understand why you bought this car. And what they found is consistently people were buying those cars for the stature, but more often than not, it's because they really loved racing culture. And they saw this as a way to get their family into the racing culture, because they could get their wife behind the wheel of the McLaren doing laps around the NASCAR track or the F1 track. And then they could get their son or their daughter to do it. And then all of a sudden they're spending days together at the racetrack doing what dad loves, and dad is connecting with the people that he loves. And it's like, oh yeah, you know what? If I have a couple $1 million, if that's the future that I'm building, heck yeah, that's worth it. Right. And so then what McLaren started to do was create experiences around that so that the families could have that. And then they could invite friends and get more people. And it actually changed how McLaren was marketing what they were doing. Right. And I think that again, it also changed the back end of how people were interacting with the brand. Now, obviously they didn't, add extra trunk space, so that people could put their car seats in the back. But it was more like focusing in on how do we make this McLaren better able to get people into, like, to service that family job and get people into the racing culture. And those changes to the whole experience led to increased retention as well, just like you're talking about. You don't see many McLarens listed on Craigslist.
Yeah. In fact, if you know what you're looking at, you see more McLarens than you do any other car of that realm, right? Ferraris are rare. Porsches are rare. I see more Porsche SUVs than I do 911s and 944s. Yeah. Lamborghinis, hardly ever. McLaren, Tuesday, right? Tuesday. And maybe that outs me and where I live, but it's not my McLaren. But it's not uncommon, right? My neighbor has one, right? It's a thing. But it's, yeah, they've done that strategically, intelligently. If you head out in the west burbs of Chicago, there's a place called Fluid Motor Union. They do custom exhaust work and high-end performance engine work. And in their parking lot is probably 70% McLaren.
Wow.
Right? I mean, it's just ownership of that market. It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Customer retention. They're happy. They're driving them. They're paying to fix them and maintain them. Right?
Well, and to Zach's point, they're reaching through to that next generation as well, right? So there's their expansion baked right in to their retention model.
Exactly. Well, and the other part of this is that they're strategic about it.
Yep.
Right. So they're not just saying, well, our customers will tell us if they're not satisfied. Like, they're actually strategic about how do we talk to them? How do we deploy this? How do we do all of this so that we do, to your point, like, we do build it in for the next generation and can continue to grow this company. And I think that's what's missing is this through point, where businesses say, our processes and systems will handle the back end, so we're covered, and we just need to drive those sales, because if we drive the sales, our processes and systems will handle the back end, our customers will be happy, and we'll make billions of dollars. Well, the fact of the matter is, unless you're strategic about deploying that product post-sale, you won't make billions of dollars. And that is, I think, what we're talking about is just how can you be more strategic about deploying your product or service and understanding what it is your customer wants that product or service to do. They don't care about how it does, how the job is done. They really don't. They just care that the job gets done. And that's where that nuance and strategy and balance of science and art comes in.
Something else you're touching on that I think is also important is, again, like if we look at the pre and post transaction sides of things, what I'm hearing is that McLaren's done a lot of work in the post transaction. It's not just an afterthought. And that's differentiated them. They are thinking about where their brand is going. And, you know, you can throw whatever other, you know, fancy car brand you want under the bus for this, you know, comparison. But there's the other side of it where, you know, that car equals midlife crisis. Right? And like everything I've heard so far today, like this car equals family. And that's a huge difference out there in the market to be known as, you know, again, the supercar for families, but without the second row of seats, the trunk space, you know, figuring out how to put a car seat in there, any of the other complexities. It's amazing.
Yes. And so I think that that's what's so tricky about this is because a lot of times, particularly with customer retention and product design and development and the overlap, people just say, give me the strategy, or not the strategy, but the tactic, really. When they're asking for something specific that can be implemented on that level, it's more often a tactic. Rob, I'm sure that you would have some interesting insight into the difference between tactic and strategy, being a veteran. But typically what happens is they're saying, just tell me what to do. Just give me the tactic. I will implement the tactic. But it's literally impossible to do that in this instance, because there are an infinite number of tactics that you could implement. What matters is anchoring the through points, right? You can have one point and a line can go through that point an infinite number of ways. But the instant that you add a second point, there is only one through line.
Well, let's go back to HVAC for a second, because I think it's a similar example, right? We know what the baseline is. Put the sticker on the furnace. Joe Bob installed this. Okay, cool. But then what? They're going to register the warranty as well. Amazing. Now, who's going to be the first person to reach out to that new furnace owner and say, hey, it's time to change your filter? Who's going to be the next person to reach out and say, hey, it's time to change your filter? And like that's the baseline.
Yeah.
Next level up. How are the ducts doing? Next level up. Time for furnace maintenance, right? These things are like cars. They require this stuff. And so do you want the installer be the person who's checking in because you are the local maintenance opportunity? Or do you want to leave it to the company that's doing a better job than you because they're the furnace supplier with the warranty registration? Right? Which side do you want to be on? Because one of them produces more business. The other one produces kind of random business, I guess, right? If the manufacturer reaches out to me, I'm going to be like, okay, and who should I get to do this? And I probably won't go downstairs and look at the sticker. So I'll just Google, you know, furnace maintenance near me and take whoever's first. And this is where the ball gets dropped constantly, in my opinion.
So let's validate that by saying, look at the surprising number of home warranty and home service warranty companies like that are showing up for 20 bucks, 80 bucks a month. We'll come to your house. We'll change your furnace filter. We'll do this. We'll do this. We'll do this. We'll do this. Aging population of boomers, number one customer, right? Totally get it. If you see cottage industry popping up and you're the HVAC guy, you might want to say, what could I do better to take care of my customers, right?
Because your market share is getting
why am
eaten.
I not that guy?
Yeah.
Right? You missed the
100%.
opportunity. So get on it. You're
100%.
already there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's keep helping people. Good talk, guys. Customer retention, key to profitability, right? It's not just employee retention, but customer retention. These
Touch
things
right.
make
points,
you
touch
profitable.
points, touch points.
Well,
Yeah.
and I want to emphasize that because, again, I think that people think that most growth comes from new acquisitions. That's
Yeah.
when you actually break it out, that's only 30% of your growth on average. 60 to 70% of new growth, not new growth, but overall growth in a company comes from upsells from recurring customers or existing customers. Like, that's why we're talking about this. That's why this matters so much, is because, again, you could be growing so much faster and so much more aggressively if you are making sure that you understand and are customer centric. If you understand your customer and are focused on them.
And
Because ultimately, if you aren't, you're going to be one of that 50,000 companies or more that's going away.
you could hammer the numbers once more, and thanks for bringing up this super broad, non-industry specific, we can't do better than this. Letting those existing customers fall to the wayside and spending only on new ones is going to cost you somewhere between 8 and 19 times as much.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Whatever your cost of acquisition is.
Yep.
Which is crazy numbers.
Crazy.
Yeah.
You
Crazy.
literally can't afford not to retain people, right? Double negatives stink, but yeah. Come on.
Well, and you know, I believe our listeners aren't stupid, right? Like they're saying, I already know this, but I don't have time, right? My team doesn't have the expertise. I don't have the mental bandwidth. I've never done this before, right? Like those are all valid. Those are all valid. Like that makes perfect sense that you would say that, because you probably haven't, right?
Yeah.
But that's not an excuse to not bring in people like us to solve that problem.
I heard every single one of those sentences in January.
Yep.
Word for word.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're
And
here
that's
to
the
help.
thing. We are here to help. And like, I get it. You can feel like a fish out of water with stuff like this. This can be very, very daunting, but we've done this before. We've actually helped businesses figure this out successfully and grow like crazy. And we'd love to do it for you.
We had a blueprint we didn't win about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Again, my sales lead took the call. I didn't have the conversation or anything like that. But just for the sake of a number to think about, this gentleman had built his business off of referrals and they weren't coming in anymore. And so he went out and spent $20,000 on lead generation and got 0 results.
Oh, that hurts.
And
That hurts me.
again, like all this post-transaction stuff with customers that already existed, I mean, I don't even want to make up the return that could have been made by investing $20,000 into that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Even like, even just $10,000, like half that much, you could generate such a massive return just by having a conversation with even 15 of your customers. You don't have to talk to 100 of them. You could even just talk to 15. Hell, I'll do it for you, right?
Yeah.
And I won't charge you 20 grand. I mean, I might eventually, but
based on his price point, that $10,000 of labor into that could have probably returned somewhere between $150,000 and $400,000.
Oh yeah. And it would have made it so that when he was ready to invest in outbound, it would have been 10 times at least more effective.
Right.
Absolutely.
But what this guy was doing is he was saying, all right, these are things that I think are good ideas that I think my customers like. And, oh, okay, we'll go with that one. All right. You know, like he's throwing spaghetti against the wall. He's throwing a dart at a dartboard. Like that's what you're doing when you're making this guess. You can tell
Awesome.
I'm fired up about this.
No more
This is
guessing.
great stuff. Yeah, we should get to work and publish case studies on this one. But I will, I'll leave it at that for today. I want to say thank you for, digging into this and, helping come at it in a few different ways. I think it always makes more sense to hear a variety of contexts and analogies. And so, yeah, thanks for your contribution. And for those of you who hung out with us today, or if you're watching the replays, your comments, your ideas, your opinions all count and matter. It helps the next person in line. So don't be shy about sharing your wisdom as well.
Please.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.